Is it still raining at the ground or not?
Hello and welcome to ESPN Cricket Info Matchday. Now, if the last test match was played on a ground where no Asian team had ever won a match, well then this time around the second test starts on a ground where England haven't been able to beat an Asian team in the last 5 encounters. They've had 2 losses to Pakistan and then 2 draws against Sri Lanka and 1 loss against India. I'm Nikhil Nash. Joining me in our Mumbai studios, VVS Lakshman, Toby Roland Jones joins us live from the London studios, and Melinda Farrell joining us live from right outside the Lord's Cricket Ground. VVS, I'll start with you. For India, couldn't have been a better venue. Now, this is the place where they last won a test match, trailing 1-0. Best place to play for them?
Yes, and that will be the mindset of each and every player, because when you do well as a team, when you do well as an individual on a particular ground, you go into that ground with anticipation and also expectations. So I'm sure that India will be looking forward to put the right step forward on this very ground, because last time the way they won, especially when they were under pressure, the way Ajinkya Rahane got runs, got 100, had that partnership with Bhuvneshwar Kumar, and then Ishant Sharma executed the game plan to perfection. Ravindra Jadeja played a huge role in that test match. So I'm sure they will all be fond memories, and I'm sure they will repeat that this time around.
Okay, Melinda Farrell is joining us from right outside the Lord's Cricket Ground. Mel, I believe we already know it's going to be a delayed start. It's raining. I can see the umbrella out there. I believe you've been in England for the last 4 months. Finally feeling like you're in England, not like in downtown Mumbai or Dubai or someplace because of the long summer that they've had?
Well, you know what? It's been very much like an Australian summer in some parts of Australia, I'd say. I think this is only the second real day, I've had an umbrella out for at least 2 months, probably longer, and it's certainly not a prop today. It's been kind of a little bit miserly all morning. It's actually got a bit worse just in the last half an hour that I've been out here. So as you say, we know play will be delayed. We don't know exactly how long by. The forecast seems to be suggesting this is going to hang around for quite a while today, and maybe even tomorrow as well. And it's so ironic because it's been so hot and dry. The ground staff here, this is Nick Hunt, the head curator. It's his final year here. He's going to retire. And I understand he's saying that it's been the hardest pitch to prepare in terms of heat in the whole time he's been here, and that includes 1976, which was renowned as the hottest summer that people can remember. So they've had a real challenge here, and it's so ironic that we've had such hot, sunny, dry conditions right up until day 1.
Okay, talking about the pitch, and it's quite ironic that we're talking about the heat in England and how the pitch is going to behave. Toby, I'll come to you now, someone who's played a lot of cricket on this particular ground. Tell us, what can one expect? I know this is unprecedented, the kind of summer that you've had in England, but the pictures that I saw of the pitch last evening, it was full of grass. So what can one expect from this particular pitch? Is the grass there just to bind the pitch, or can we see some sort of help for the seam bowlers?
I think certainly that there's an aspect of leaving a good layer of grass on there to ensure that over the course of 5 days that it doesn't break down too much. Certainly over the course of this summer, and maybe even over the last 2 or 3 years, the pitches at Lord's have got a little bit drier and been a little bit more responsive to spin. So I think certainly, the one thing that remains constant at Lord's is how the pitch plays under the overhead conditions. So if it's cloudy, and the rain stops, then certainly we should see a bit of swing, and it should liven up the grass as well. That does cover the pitch. So, it could produce quite a tricky little period for whoever ends up batting on it, that's for sure.
Okay, tricky is now the operative word. It's going to be tricky for the captains also to pick the team. Let's listen into Virat Kohli and what his mind frame is like going into this particular test match. Who are the players that he'd be banking on ahead of the Lord's Test?
It doesn't hurt when you score runs and you don't win only. I mean, it hurts when you're not scoring runs as well, and you know the team is not doing well. It's not like I feel bad because I got runs and you know we couldn't get across the line. It's not because of that. It's purely because we haven't won the games. If I hadn't got runs and we would have won, you know, I would have a totally different feeling, and that's very natural very natural aspect of playing team sport. Just walking in here, the pitch looked really hard. The surface looked dry. It's been very hot in London for the last couple of months. There's a good grass cover on it, and that's required basically to keep the wicket together. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult for it to hold itself even in the first 2 days. That's how dry it's been here. So yeah, I mean the pitch is going to be. I think it's going to be all-round wicket. If batsmen bat well, they can get runs. If seamers obviously are going to be in play with the Duke's ball in overcast conditions, as and when the wicket wears off, the spinners can come into play as well. So yeah, a tempting thought to field 2 spinners. But again, we'll have to take a call on that, you know, depending on the team balance. But yeah, it's definitely in contention.
Okay, Virat Kohli, they're saying the pitch looks dry, so the spinners might come into play. He's also tempted to play a second spinner. We'll talk at length a little later, but viewers, before that, there was all this talk about, you know, it being a hot English summer. It was ahead of the first test match as well, but the ball kept swinging. So is it a bit of a red herring that it's really hot, the ball won't swing? Eventually, the ball does swing in England.
I was surprised, and that's something to do with the Duke's ball.
Okay.
Because with the white kookaburra ball, there was no swing throughout the ODI and the T20 series. You know, so I think it's more to do with the Duke's ball, and the older it got, it swung more. You know, and I think it's going to happen throughout the series. You know, the only difference if rain is around, if it's overcast, if there is green cover on the wicket, is then the bowlers can also get lateral movement off the wicket. But I think throughout the series, the ball is going to swing, and it's going to be consistent for both the teams.
Okay, Toby, because VVS says that even ahead of the Edgbaston test match, we were talking about it being a dry summer, there weren't overcast conditions there, but the Duke's ball was still swinging. When you say there are going to be overcast conditions here at Lord's, and that's going to determine how the ball swings, I mean, should the Indian batsman be even more worried? It's going to swing even more than Edgbaston? Is that what you're trying to tell us?
I think certainly with the forecast in particular, yeah, I think we could see, you know, the ball swinging, you know, a decent amount. But also I think there's potential for this weather at the moment to just liven up the surface. You know, the little bit of grass layering that's covering the wicket and keeping it in place. So it could make it a little bit tricky, but generally assessing the Lord's wicket, you look at getting through the first session, and if it gets a little bit of sun on it, then it can change very quickly, and it's overall normally a pretty good batting track.
Okay, a good batting track, that's what Lord's is renowned for, which is why probably the reason why we showed you England haven't managed to win against an Asian team in the last 5 encounters. Most of those Asian teams boasted of some good batsmen in their lineup. But let's take a look at how the pacers have performed on this particular track and how the spinners. Now it's really skewed in favor of the pacers there, VVS, as we can say, but you expect that in England. I think the margin isn't as much as it would be in other English grounds. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, it's a fair assessment, and I think the spinners also have a role in London, you know, because south of England compared to the other venues which are towards the north of England, where there is always you know, the atmosphere hesses the swing bowlers more than the spinners. But in England, when you play at the Oval or at Lord's, there is definitely going to be assistance for the spinners as the match progresses. And in England, always the fast bowlers will have a role to play, you know, because the weather keeps changing, the ball suits the swing bowlers. But I think if any venue where the spinners can have a big role to play, okay, it's at Lord's.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you that big question, whether India will play 2 spinners. But before that, there is also a selection dilemma in front of the English team. And I'll ask Mel that. Mel, you know, we all know Ollie Pope is almost certain to make his debut in this particular test match. But the other question is, who's going to replace Ben Stokes? Do you think it'll be Moeen Ali or would it be Woakes? Who do you think the English team is likely to go for in this particular game?
I mean, it's very difficult to say really, but between the two of them, and I don't know if this rain might actually make a bit of a difference in how they decide to go, because you obviously have that extra option with Moeen Ali if they think spin will play a part as this pitch dries out. A drainage here is pretty efficient, I can tell you as well. So once the rain stops, it doesn't take long for the ground to dry out again. Chris Woakes looked pretty good in the nets yesterday, and he perhaps reminded Joe Root of what he can do by actually wrapping him on the knuckles with a good length ball in the nets. So to be honest, I'm not really sure which way they're going to go. I think they're going to be waiting just to see what happens with this weather, which is still getting worse as we go. But Ollie Pope was, on the other hand, you know, that him coming in directly for David Milan was quite an eye-opener to see a 20-year-old come in and straight into number 4. So that's going to be a very interesting welcome that I think he'll get when he comes out eventually.
Okay, Melinda, thanks so much for those updates. We'll let you go. I know it's raining, it's a delayed start, but Melinda was talking about how Woakes may have impressed his captain, Joe Root, by hitting him on the fingers in the nets. But I know of many captains who may not be very impressed if you get hit in the nets. For all you know, that may just drop him as well. We've seen that in the past. But Toby, to you, the same question. Woakes or Moeen Ali, looking at the particular pitch and you know it so well, who would you rather go for?
It's a very difficult decision. I think personally probably would just side with Chris Woakes, just purely on the basis of if there's a little bit of weather around and a slightly shortened game. His record in England is absolutely excellent with the ball, and he still is a very capable batsman. So I think he got left out of that first Test squad and went away to do a little bit extra to get himself fit and ready for this Test match. So if it were me, I'd try and use him and hope that sort of sparks a little bit of a reaction. And yeah, I mean, I think it was a couple of years ago he got 6 or 7 here at Lord's against Pakistan. So it's a ground that he's been successful on before. So I think for me, I'd just sway with Chris Woakes.
Okay.
Same with me, Chris Woakes, because the reason Indian batsmen were under pressure at Edgbaston was there were 4 quality bowlers. They overly didn't depend on just Broad and Anderson, because they definitely put a lot of pressure early on. But that pressure was sustained because of good bowling, consistent bowling, disciplined bowling from Sam Curran and then Ben Stokes. So I would definitely go for Chris Woakes. And if you see, he's a quality bowler, best for 6 for 70, but he is that kind of bowler who uses the conditions to great effect, can swing the ball, pitch the ball up. And I think if you ask the Indian batsmen whether they prefer playing a Moeen Ali or a Chris Woakes, any day they will say that we would love to play Moeen Ali, even though the wicket is suitable for the spinner. So I think Chris Woakes is the right choice, and plus he can bat as well.
Okay, since you've said Woakes, you've gone for the seamer instead of a spinner in the English squad. Now let me ask you about the Indian squad. That's the big question. Would you go for a seamer or an extra spinner?
Well, I would go for an extra spinner. And I will go for 5 bowlers, and I would not have Hardik Pandya and probably have Jadeja there. I would have. It was a tough call between Jadeja or Kuldeep, but because the Indian batsmen struggled in the first match and overly depended on Virat Kohli, if they would have got a big score in the first match, I would have probably, the aggressive option is going with Kuldeep. But now it's a like-to-like swap with Jadeja, having fond memories from what he did at Lord's last time, can bat, and then with Jadeja in the squad, you can also have depth in the batting lineup, and then you've got 3 quality fast bowlers in Umesh. Hopefully he'll get his rhythm right in this Test match. So Umesh, Ishant and Shami, and then you got 2 spinners in Ashwin and Jadeja.
Okay, let me ask you a follow-up on that, because in the English squad you've gone for a seamer instead of a spinner, but in the Indian team you say spinner. Is it because of the quality of the spinners we're talking about, Moeen Ali / Ravindra Jadeja, or is it because of the quality of batsmen that the bowlers are going to be bowling at?
I think it's what Hardik Pandya is contributing at the moment. And Hardik Pandya, if you see, as a 5th bowling option, is supposed to bowl a lot more overs, but that's not happened. Whenever the conditions are suiting the bowlers, in South Africa he just bowls some 8 or 9% of those overs at Joburg or at Cape Town. And then batting at number 7, you're not really getting that value from him. So ideally you have someone who can do those jobs, and whenever you have Jadeja with the ball, he can come and put pressure on the batsman, whether it's the right-handed or the left-handed. So it's just because I think the Indian team is not getting the best out of Hardik Pandya, the bowler. He's batted well. He really did bat well at best, and I was impressed with his maturity and also his feet movement. But I think if you see overall balance of the team, it's more, I think Jadeja can contribute a lot more with the bat and ball compared to Hardik.
In fact, the numbers also endorse exactly what VVS is saying. It's the role of Hardik Pandya as a bowler. In fact, I believe the last 4 test matches that he's played, he's gone wicketless. So that's really important. Are you playing him?
Not only wicketless, the number of overs he gets to bowl. You know, and whenever the conditions are in favour of the fast bowlers, invariably Virat Kohli rotates the 3 fast bowlers, or if it's suitable for the spinners, then he has more option with an extra spinner than Hardik Pandya.
So you can even manage the workload better if you have another spinner. Okay, we're talking about another debutant from the English team who's most likely going to make his debut here at Lord's. It's the 20-year-old Ollie Pope. Let's listen in to Joe Root as what he's expecting out of this young star.
Yeah, Ollie will come in and bat at 4. He's obviously batted at 6 for Surrey this season, but having seen him play a little bit and you know, the way his game's set up, I think it's very much transferable to bat at number 4 in Test cricket.
It's a big moment for him. I honestly haven't seen him bat or seen how he goes about things, but I'm sure if he's selected to play for England in Test cricket, he's obviously supposed to be very good.
I think he's performed exceptionally well this season in county championship cricket. You know, he's played some very important knocks under pressure for Surrey, and you know, he's got a very good all-round game, and that's a very exciting prospect, you know, for such a young man.
We as a side obviously are focused on taking all the wickets from the opposition, and he's obviously going to be one of them 2 times around in 2 innings, so we're definitely going to try and knock him over as early as possible.
Actually very mature for a young man. You know, you can see that he thinks about the game a lot and has a very good understanding of where he's at within his own game, which, you know, is a really good sign in a young man coming into this environment, and hopefully that'll stand him in really good stead moving forward.
On a larger front, I'm happy that he's been selected for England. Happy for him, because as a cricketer I understand how important it is, and yeah, I just would say enjoy the occasion, but not get too many runs.
So it's in the back of these good performances by Ollie Pope that he's made it into the English Test squad. Look at those numbers there. This is the County Championship Division 1 2018. This is this particular season. In 8 matches there, he's got 684 runs at an average. Phenomenal average, I must add, at 85.5. He's got 150 and 300s. That's the best this season for any batsman in the County Championship. I'll go across to Toby. Toby, you may have played against Ollie a bit in the County Championship or otherwise seen him. Could you tell us a bit about him?
Yeah, I have. I played against him last season in one of his earlier matches in domestic cricket, and he didn't score a great deal then, but certainly, you know, he was part of a young Surrey team, and he looked full of promise. And I think since the turn of the summer and the start of this season, he seems to have really, you know, found another gear and found a really sort of special bit of form. So it's a really gutsy decision to stick him in at 4, but I think it reflects at the moment, you know, what the management in English cricket is thinking. They want to back these young English talents, and he certainly seems like one who his game is still developing, but at the same time is producing some pretty steady numbers this summer. So 300s already, and yeah, right at the top of the average charts is pretty impressive for a lad at 20. So it's definitely exciting to see him get an opportunity.
Okay, gutsy decision is what Toby is saying about the selection of Ollie Pope into the English Test squad. We'll have to take a short break on our program at the moment, but before that, let's talk about the Vodafone fan. We've got Rahul Manjal. We showed you during the first Test match. He was all geared up to go to the Lord's Cricket Stadium, and now he's there. Let's see what's he up to.
I'm finally here in the amazing city of London, home to cricket, and yes, Lord's, the mecca of cricket. I just can't wait to start this magical tour because there are a lot of things I want to do. You know, I want to visit museums, palaces, London nightlife, and obviously India versus England, the Test match at the Lord's. Who doesn't want to see that? Well, let me take a moment and call back my family and tell them about my arrival. Hi! So with unlimited calling on Vodafone's international roaming pack, it is seamless and absolutely easy.
Catch the best of the England-India series on ESPN Cricinfo. Match highlights, clips and the best moments.
Welcome back to ESPN Cricinfo Matchday. VVS Lakshman, Toby Rolling Jones with us. Talking about Ollie Pope, so much was said by Virat Kohli there as well as Joe Root. The last time a 20-year-old played against India was Sam Curran, and we all know what he did there. Should Indian batsmen or the Indian fans be scared of another youngster?
I think you can't be scared, but I think it's a great movement for a youngster, you know. And I've got a lot of respect for Head Smith and now Taylor assisting him, because Head Smith has got a very good cricket brain and acumen. So I think the thought process is very simple: is give chances to youngsters who have shown their mettle in domestic cricket, in county championship. And if you ask any player who's making his debut, the best time to make or start your international career when you're in good form. 85 average in county championship means that he's thinking positive and he's got a very positive mindset at the moment. So I think it's a great opportunity for him, just like what Sam Curran showcased at Edgbaston, to grab this moment. But I just want to ask this to Toby. You know, I've got a lot of time for someone like James Vince, you know, who's from Southampton, who plays for Hampshire. Yes, he got an opportunity against the Australians in the Ashes, but don't you think that someone like him with that experience can do well even in test match cricket as well?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. I think of all the people, you know, across the country with this selection, he'd be the one who's probably feeling a little bit aggrieved right now, having got dropped this summer because Joe Root moved up to 3 and they wanted Jos Buttler in at 7. Perhaps, you know, the number 4 slot becoming available, which prior to playing for England was the position that he used to occupy. He might feel a little bit, you know, hard done by. He's certainly a great stroke maker and someone who in Australia, I thought, barring a few sort of, you know, dismissals, looked like he was actually in really good form. So they've decided to go, you know, a different route, and I guess the one thing, like you mentioned, as a young batsman, the most important thing is the fact that he is in good form at the moment. And they clearly feel like they want to take advantage of that and try and get him into the team.
Okay, Toby, stay on with us. VVS also here, but let's talk about the Indian batting lineup as well. And then the one guy who really performed well for India, outstanding he was in the first test match at Edgbaston, was skipper Virat Kohli. And this is none other than Sachin Tendulkar talking to ESPN Cricinfo's Andrew Miller about Virat's phenomena.
Another guy who's just scored his first 100 in England, obviously Virat Kohli, immense performance in the first test. I mean, he obviously memorably said at the end of the World Cup final that you had been carrying India on the shoulders for 21 years. It's time for someone else to take the burden. I mean, he's taken it in some, hasn't he? What advice can you give to him as he's sort of halfway, I guess, through the burden you carried?
I would say just continue. You're doing a fantastic job, so continue. You know, don't worry about what's happening around you. You know, just keep your focus on what you want to achieve, and let your heart guide the way. You know, because along the way there'll be plenty of things said and done, you know, but eventually if one is passionate about what you want to be in life, then the results invariably follow.
He came over here with a real point to prove, I suppose, after not performing quite so well in England on the last tour, to score that first 100 in England. I mean, how big a moment is it for even for a guy who's achieved so much in his career?
Well, I can tell you from my own experience that however many runs you score, they're never enough. So, you know, you want more runs, and that is the case with Virat. That how many runs he scores, you know, it's never going to be enough for him. You know, the downfall starts when you're satisfied. You know, it's nice to be happy, but never be satisfied if you're a batsman, or bowlers only get 10 wickets, but batters can go on and on. So don't be satisfied, just be happy.
Okay, stay hungry. That's Sachin Tendulkar's advice to Virat Kohli. VVS, I'll come back to the Indian playing 11, and you spoke about the spinners. You wanted 2 spinners to play there. Let's talk about the batting lineup. Would you make any changes?
I wouldn't make any changes. Yes, I would have loved to have Pujara. In the first place, he shouldn't have been dropped at the at the Edgbaston Test match. But once you have reposed faith in the batting lineup, you know, it's very important to give them that confidence. You know, and even after just 1 or 2 innings, if you drop them, then it creates that insecurity not only in their minds, but the other person who's coming and occupying their space. So I think it's very important to stick with the same batting lineup and the same personnel, and the communication should be very clear. We believe in you. Yes, you didn't have a good test match. Identify the reasons why you didn't have a good test match. And Virat used 2 words, you know, application and being conservative, you know, and I think it's important for the Indian batsmen to know that they're playing test match cricket. It's not T20 or ODI. So it's very important to respect the condition, respect the situation, and play with patience. All of them are stroke players. If they spend more time on the wicket, runs are bound to come. So I think it's important to stick with the same personnel, give them the confidence.
Okay, Toby, earlier in the program you mentioned how Lords is generally a good batting track. Keeping that in mind, do you think this would be the best opportunity for the rest of the Indian batsmen, barring Virat Kohli, to get into some sort of form?
Certainly it does, you know, generally represent a good chance. It's interesting, I think, like VVS said, you know, with a lot of the guys being stroke makers, it certainly is a ground which is good to bat on, but I think the slope always should ensure that batsmen just keep themselves in check and have their game in good order. I think it's a place where you need to have a good mind, a good mental approach to the game, and sort of almost a tactical awareness of how you're going to play from both ends. So yeah, I'm sure the Indian batsmen would have spoken about that, and yeah, certainly if the pitch, you know, if the overhead conditions clear and it's sunny throughout the test, then it should be pretty good to bat on.
We spoke about the players that are coming into the English side, but let's talk about the one who's gone out, Ben Stokes. How much are they going to miss? Massive
difference, you know, and especially from his bowling point of view. Batting is still not yet got that rhythm, and this was an ideal match, you know, to continue from what he did at Edgbaston, to find his form as far as a batsman is concerned. But the pressure with which he inculcated on the Indian batsmen, and bowling some gem of deliveries, the one which he got KL Rahul out in the second innings was probably the ball of the match. So I think he will be massively missed, and they will feel the pressure. They will feel his absence. There's no doubt about it.
Okay, Ashwin may have other opinion about ball of the match, the one he bowled to Alistair Cook.
It can be you know, argued or debated, but I think it was a beauty what he produced to get KL Rahul out.
Okay, a quick word, Toby, from you. Ben Stokes missing out. Does this then make the game evenly balanced? Otherwise, England would have gone in with an advantage, having won the first Test match.
Yeah, I think it's a massive miss for the England side. Certainly he's someone who can contribute equally with bat and ball, which is obviously so rare these days, and it looked like he was almost, you know, gearing up for a big score. He was struggling for a bit of rhythm, and I think he's always enjoyed playing at Lords, particularly, you know, with both bat and ball. So yeah, it's a massive miss, and whoever out of Moeen or Chris Wokes come in to replace him, he's not only a good cricketer, but he's a big character. You see him almost when he's bowling, he gets the crowd going. You feel him really sort of pull everyone along with him, and he creates some pretty special periods of play. And I think, like VVS said, he puts a lot of pressure onto the batsman. So, yeah, he's certainly going to be a big miss.
All right, Toby, thanks so much for joining us. VVS Lakshman, thanks so much. I'm afraid completely out of time. But here's a reminder, the toss has been delayed. We'll bring you all the latest updates on ESPN Cricinfo. We'll be back again once the team's announced. Until then, bye-bye from us.